Timothée Chalamet has captured the hearts of many the last few years, from nerds both old and new, Bob Dylan heads, chocolate enthusiasts, cannibals. We'll put a pin in that one for now. Although he's been around for quite a while, it seems like just recently that he jumped into the focal point of pop culture outside of just his films, with a plethora of his interviews and live performances garnering him universal praise for his charm and sincerity. Add on top of all this his stellar performances with Greta Gerwig and Saoirse Ronan, the tiniest of roles in one of the most beloved modern films, and getting the chance to work with basically as impressive a catalog of directors and fellow actors as humanly possible. Timothée Chalamet has carved out a niche for himself as one of Hollywood's most marketable young stars. Although he didn't emerge into superstardom from his very first role, he's followed a different sort of arc in his career path that I actually find far more interesting: consistent growth. Not only has he gotten better with every single role, but he's gotten more popular too. Timothée Chalamet's expansive but frankly still quite young career is a fascinating one to peer at a little deeper. And with his Oscar chances sky high at the moment, I felt there could be no better time to do this than right now.
What do you have during a movie? Milk duds. I rip milk duds. I'm talking 12 at a time.
Chalamet had a handful of roles in horror short films Sweet Tooth and Clown before turning to television with appearances in Law & Order, Loving Leah, Royal Pains, and even portraying Finn Walden for the entirety of Season 2 of Homeland. He made his film debut in 2014's Men, Women, and Children, and then, for his second movie role, he did what most young actors do. He booked a role with Christopher Nolan.
What?
Yeah, in the same year he landed Interstellar, and although it's a pretty small role, it's still impactful and very connected to the main characters of the film. A film which happens to be regarded as perhaps the very best of one of the best working directors. He's perfectly solid in this movie, and while I wouldn't say he's a superstar in the making or anything, is there a better possible experience for a young, talented actor than working alongside Christopher Nolan, Matthew McConaughey, Jessica Chastain, Anne Hathaway? I mean, the list just goes on and on. There is such a sweet moment from an interview he did with Emma Stone where he talks about seeing this film 12 times in theaters because he loved it so much. And after a private screening he attended with just a few of his co-stars, he went home to his father and wept because he just felt like his part was bigger. No scenes were cut or anything like that. It was just such an immense and epic experience for him to create the film that it was a bit weird to see how small of a role he truly played. And I just think that's the sweetest thing ever. A bit sad, but who wouldn't feel the same way in his shoes? His career came back down to earth a little bit after this, but it didn't stay that way for long, trust me. He was handpicked for a play entitled Prodigal Son, which won him a Lucille Lortel Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Play. And then a little after this, he had a role in a film I adored called Miss Stevens, where we get to see a variation on his more prototypical young, troubled, sad boy youth. In this he plays Billy, a boy on medication for an unspecified mental health problem that just makes him act a bit unpredictable and unfocused. Basically, he falls for his teacher while on a school trip, and we get to see them grapple with that fact as well as the rest of life's little problems. And we get this from both of their perspectives. Like with most indie movies, it's sort of just culminates with the characters gaining a deeper understanding of themselves and the people around them. And then that's it. No sense of finality, quite the contrary. And I think Chalamet gives a very subtle performance where each of his actions, whether hot-headed, foolish, sad, or brave, are very believable and understandable. His physicality is a strength of his, both with his expressions and mannerisms. Later in his career, and in this movie as well, he succeeds with impassioned speeches and charming line deliveries. But I've always loved how much he can convey with a simple look away from the camera or the humble shrug. If he wasn't quite able to show me he had the makings of a real star in Interstellar, I'd say he was able to with Miss Stevens. And that leads perfectly into his next film, because after this, Chalamet once again forgot he was on planet Earth and launched himself into the upper stratosphere of the silver screen elites with Luca Guadagnino's Call Me By Your Name. Playing Elio, a 17-year-old Jewish French-Italian boy in 1983's Northern Italy, he meets 24-year-old Oliver, played by Armie Hammer, who is also Jewish, who comes from America to work alongside Elio's father for the summer and live with them all. They act as mirrors to one another, where Elio is quiet, sulky, and reserved, Oliver is brash, confident, and outspoken. They form a strange but cute friendship where eventually Elio starts to develop romantic feelings for Oliver, and it's clear Oliver feels the same way, but does not want to indulge. Eventually they do give in and enjoy a secret romance over the summer. Chalamet is superb, but Hammer deserves his flowers as well. This movie is only as good as it is because each of them are bringing something unique to the table. It's a super cute film with some neat editing and music, and watching Chalamet come to terms with his own sexuality and break out of his shell enough to confess his feelings is great. I thought the movie lost just a little bit of luster once they finally got together. The scenes of them wrestling with their emotions and acting cryptically were a lot more compelling to me. But then the scene of Oliver leaving and their goodbye is heartbreaking, and the final scene is even better. After learning Oliver was engaged, Elio walks over to the fireplace and stares into it, absolutely shattered, and the credits start to roll while the camera holds on Chalamet's face. For legitimately nearly 4 minutes, we just get Chalamet's emotions, and it is phenomenal, both from a filmmaking and acting standpoint. We get tons of beautiful emotion, both boyish enthusiasm and heartbreaking physicality. He even learned Italian and how to play classical piano for this role. Chalamet was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor for this film, and it made him the third youngest nominee in history. For reference, the youngest and second youngest nominees were in 1930 and 1939 respectively, so this is even more bananas than it first sounds. Alongside this, he also garnered a smattering of other honors, such as being featured on lists made by by Time Magazine, the New York Times, and the Hollywood Reporter for having one of the best performances of the year. Likewise, he won the Gotham Independent Film Award for Breakthrough Actor and the Independent Spirit Award for Best Male Lead. He also received nominations for Critics' Choice Movie Award, Golden Globe Award, SAG Award, BAFTA Award, and Academy Award, all for Best Actor. It was safe to say that Timothée Chalamet had arrived. This movie was clearly his big breakout role, and I still think his acting only improves from here on. A Best Actor nomination at this age for a film this sincere would be a crowning achievement on most anyone's career. But of course, for Timothée Chalamet, he was just getting started. In the same year, he did two movies I liked just as much, Lady Bird and Hostiles. There's no need to get into Hostiles. I watched it for this video because he was in it, and because I will eventually do the exact same video someday for Christian Bale, and Timothy effectively had one line where he goes, hey, why do you want me coming on this mission? And then Bale says, I don't. And then he's promptly shot in the heart, so I'm not sure it's essential Chalamet viewing, but it is still a great movie. Lady Bird, on the other hand, slaps, and he helps it achieve that status a great deal. This is the perfect indie movie with the perfect cast. He and Saoirse Ronan have such incredible chemistry that we'll see again not too long from now, and I desperately want them to team up with Greta Gerwig at least one more time to complete what would be my favorite unofficial trilogy. Acting in a supporting role, this film delivers us quintessential Chalamet scenes, such as the one where he's not only smoking a cigarette and drinking coffee, not only reading a pretentious novel in public, not only dressed in all black, but he also manages to pepper in some French during his brief conversation with Lady Bird. His hair also looks fantastic. He steals the attention of every scene he's in, and his dialogue is just next level. I wouldn't go so far as to say Chalamet's comedic talents are underrated, but I still don't think he gets the praise he deserves considering he plays so many roles absolutely devoid of humor, and then manages to ooze it in films like this. I guess that's exactly what underrated means though, so what the fuck am I even saying? The perfect version of the cool, mysterious high school guy who's both the exact same pretentious little shit as everyone else, and also his own unique version of a shitbag. The writing for him is masterful, yes, but he sells you on every little contradictory line and artificial moment to enhance the already excellent script. A pretty dramatic shift occurs in the following year's Beautiful Boy, where he co-stars alongside Steve Carell. Remember when I said he plays roles devoid of humor? This one. An unrelenting tale told from the perspective of both the drug-addicted son trying and hopelessly failing to overcome his addiction, and the father trying like hell to find the right combination of words and actions to help him. This is a pretty tough watch, even for a movie with two stellar actors leading the way with great chemistry. Maybe that actually is why it's so tough to watch. Chalamet plays Nick Sheff perfectly, with just enough charisma and sincerity that the people around him can never bring themselves to completely give up on him, regardless of how often he lies, manipulates them, and tries so hard to ruin his own life. Brief flashes of humanity and a genuine desire to better himself are obliterated time and time again by his addiction. He lashes out on those around him, lets down the people he loves, ruins relationships, and sells his soul at every turn. His chemistry with the characters he shares such complex relationships with is particularly impressive, whether it be his parents struggling to come up with the right solutions, his stepmother doing everything she can to help Chalamet while providing support to his grieving father, or his young stepbrothers. In fact, their dynamic is one of my favorites here. They're young enough to be naive and hopelessly optimistic, but as the movie progresses, even they start to regard him as someone flaky and untrustworthy. How do you tell your young kids that the older brother they idolize is potentially dangerous and can never be trusted? Especially with the fact that while he's around, he's generally fantastic to them and acts as a wonderful big brother. How do you manage when you hear a little boy ask if his big brother is back on drugs again? This is a great watch, and Chalamet is obviously at the heart of it all. You go from hating him, to pitying him, to praying for him, to being disgusted by him all in the blink of an eye. Also worth noting is how great Steve Carell is in this role. For the first few seconds, you just look at him and see Michael Scott, because obviously that's who you're going to see when you look at him, but he sheds that persona so fast and he never delves back into it. Well, except for this one time where he's yelling at Nick. He's still yelling emotionally and he's obviously not acting like Michael Scott, but you just kind of hear that tone of voice that they both have when they yell because it's obviously the same actor, and I don't know, it was just like a little bit funny.
No! You know what? You're the one who's doing it! You're the one who's causing it! And you're the only one who can stop it! You're the turtle!
2019 saw two great Chalamet films, as he loves to put out multiple bangers in a single year. Here we have The King and Little Women. The King was quite good, though not my absolute favorite. I actually watched it for my Robert Pattinson video of the same concept, and I swear I did not go into the script planning on both mentioning an old one of these and a future one. But alas, here we are. You should go check that one out if you're into this sort of stuff though, as I really love how it turned out. And don't be afraid to subscribe while you're there. It just goes such a long way. Chalamet is good, solid. It's a neat role as Henry V becoming the young King of England, but I don't really think the movie gave him a ton of chances to really get into it. But he still managed to portray a palpable level of weight and stress as he learns how to rule, trusting and going against those around him. This does feature a fantastic duel though, super brutal and realistic for two people in head-to-toe armor not shown to be, absolutely top of the food chain swordsmen. But Chalamet exists as the anchor of this entire film, elevating it as much as the script allows him to. This is by no means a bad movie. I'd recommend it heavily if you're into medieval historical stuff, which I am, and if you're a fan of either of these two actors, which I also am. That being said, I don't think it holds a candle to a good chunk of his other films, both in quality of his performance and the quality of the movie itself. itself, which is more a testament to the films he's in and the performances he's given than anything. One of those aforementioned superior roles in superior films is, in fact, Little Women, part 2 of the Saoirse Ronan, Timothée Chalamet, Greta Gerwig trio. And is it better than Lady Bird? It's close. I certainly think Chalamet is better in this one, but mostly because this is a far weightier role. He gets lots of drama and heartbreak with tons of humor, and he gets to bounce off multiple other excellent actors, and he has a unique relationship with each of them. There's more to love here with Chalamet than in some of his other roles. You get to see him in lots of different elements dealing with lots of different emotions, and he's perfectly compelling and convincing with every single one of them. Oh, why was there no role for him in Barbie? And for Saoirse Ronan, in fact. I like to think this is one of those situations where Chalamet wasn't necessarily born for this character, nor was it written perfectly for him, but instead he managed to take the character and weave it into his own vision, and the movie is all the better because of it. One thing I've said more times than I'd like is how great Chalamet's chemistry is with his co-stars, particularly in regards to how differently he treats certain people and acts around them. It's regrettable for me because I don't like repeating myself, but truly this is one of his greatest strengths. It makes him so much more compelling and believable. Do you act the same way around everyone in your life? The teacher you have a crush on, a new friend group you're hoping to become a part of, an older gay American man, or your father and stepmother fresh off a meth bender? I highly doubt it. These are all admittedly different films, but even within his films he acts differently around certain people in a way I find so endearing. And it's a skill I think he's honed over his career, which culminates in his most impressive role to date. But we'll get to that shortly. As a somewhat brief footnote, he made his debut on SNL right around here, and boy is he ever lovely. It was his first of 3 appearances, and you can definitely see the nerves during this first one, but god does he ever play it off coolly. It's a great monologue with some great sketches. Obviously I've raved about his comedic skills, so in what world would he not excel in this environment? But still, I think his second monologue is far better and genuinely one of my favorites, and in his third appearance he not only hosted but also acted as the musical talent playing Bob Dylan in his epic Oscar campaign, and it was very well received. This man is about as talented as it gets, but let's make our way back over to his filmography real quick because we could get stuck on his side quests all day. The French Dispatch added Chalamet to its batshit crazy cast of insane actors, and I think it's very telling of Chalamet's talent and affability that he was one of only a few given a main role in this bizarre movie, which features 3 stories with distinctly different characters and narratives. Considering this is a Wes Anderson film, charm was the name of the game, and he delivers that in spades.
Please turn away, I feel shy about my new muscles.
He plays the young leader of a revolution, fighting against his university for the right for all males to have free access to the girls' dormitory, something both the boys and girls want in a bid for total freedom. His comedic timing is gold. His speech is the perfect blend of impassioned and zany. He looks like old artwork sucked right out of a Wes Anderson fever dream, or maybe even a David Lynch one. Like every movie he's ever been in, his sheer presence bolsters every moment he's featured in, but The French Dispatch really lets him flex his chops both verbally and physically. He is a match made in heaven for Wes Anderson, and I hope we get to see them together again soon sometime. His next role was a little different than his Wes Anderson one. A little different than any of his roles, really, considering it's one of the most unique and powerful roles of all time. And I ain't being hyperbolic, just wait until I start talking about part 2. I am speaking, of course, about Dune, where he plays Paul Atreides. Aside from having more names than any character in recent memory, films exclusive, although that'd be a good battle, I struggle to think of a role this impactful. A masterful film, simply superb from top to bottom, anchored and carried by Timothy himself. I got into these books right before this movie was released, and yeah, unfortunately the casting had already been announced, so I was picturing these characters as their eventual on-screen counterparts. But good god, did they ever knock it out of the park in my vaguely biased opinion. Timothy is Paul. It's a match made in heaven. In fact, all of these actors embody and become their characters to unprecedented degrees, but I'll try to stop gushing about the people whose names aren't in the title of this video. Physically, he is perfect. His attitude, demeanor, his transformation from Caladan to Arrakis, from the shining future of a great house to the newest, most scrutinized member of the Fremen. I always thought Chalamet was a star, and I think most of the world agreed. But after this, there are very few actors I would comfortably claim are both better and more popular than Chalamet, and even less around his age. This movie establishes his relationships with the other characters and even aspects of the world so insanely well, and Chalamet plays it all perfectly. He has different mannerisms for different people, different intonations. You can see his thoughts whirling around inside his head when he's thinking a few steps ahead or recalling past events. This is the most believable and epic Chosen One story I've personally ever seen, and there are so many subtleties that go into every tiny movement along that path, and he sells us and the people around him on himself just flawlessly. At this point in time, right now in the present day, he is still under 30 years old and he's got 2 Best Actor nominations already, plus a handful of iconic roles in iconic films. He's done indie films, art house films, massive releases from the best of the best directors with huge marketing campaigns, small roles in superb films, main roles in iconic films. He's portrayed legacy characters from immensely popular books. He's even been Bob Dylan, for God's sakes. But we're getting ahead of ourselves just a little bit. He is perfect in this role, and somehow he's even better in the next one. These movies, obviously being a part 1 and part 2, mean his role can easily be viewed and analyzed as one overall performance. performance, and we'll do just that in a little bit. For now, on to his stellar 3-movie run wedged in between these sandy behemoths. First, Don't Look Up. I like this movie more than most, but who cares about that? Timothy is so damn good in this one as the comedic side character to 2 incredible actors. Not only does he say,
"I'd like to buy these sunglasses,"
but he also says,
Me too, I'm Yule. I'm a Fire Puma 142 on Twitch. You game?
need I say more? What's funny is that when I wrote this script, I didn't even have 2 particular lines in mind for this. I just knew he had at least 2, probably more like 5, incredible moments that I'd want to put in a video at a part like this.
Dr. Minnie, can I be vulnerable in your car?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I fucking love fingerling potatoes.
His line deliveries are psychotically great. He bounces off of every person he interacts with so well. Getting sick and tired of hearing that? Well, tell Timothy to quit having such exquisite chemistry with every single scene partner. Then we'll talk. The final product of this movie left a tiny bit to be desired, a bit like The King, where it wasn't quite as good as the sum of its parts. But I still quite liked it, and this film earns a letter grade improvement strictly because of Chalamet. He also formed a bit of a friendship with Leonardo DiCaprio during production and was given the now famous advice: no hard drugs, no superhero movies. Hard to argue with that advice, but do we think Robert Pattinson's stock fell with the Batman? Fuck no. If the circumstances were right, and that is the hardest if of my entire career, I think Chalamet would kill it in a superhero movie and get to flex his range even more. Just like Pattinson, though not to the same dramatic degree, we still haven't found a character type Chalamet can't nail. After Don't Look Up, he reunited with Luca Guadagnino to make Bones and All. Remember when I said Beautiful Boy was a tough watch? Yeah, Bones and All takes it up a notch by providing a similarly unrelenting tone while throwing in far more dark, uncomfortable moments. The title of this movie refers to the very special feeling a cannibal gets when they consume the entirety of a victim for the first time. Yes, even the bones. And the all. Chalamet plays a cool, more reserved cannibal who notices our main character Cannibal because in this world, cannibals have a certain scent only other cannibals can pick up on. Yeah, don't look now, but the lore in this film actually goes pretty hard. Anyways, Chalamet becomes a love interest for our main character, played very well by Taylor Russell, and they have a peculiar relationship. I suppose on the surface, it's just 2 young adults falling for one another. One's on the run trying to find her mom, one's a drifter who earlier in life consumed his abusive father. Their relationship dynamic is nice though. Chalamet is really good and helps sell these characters as people we should actually care about, which is crazy. A bit of suspension of disbelief is needed here and there, but in the final act of the movie, when the pair settle down and try to lead a normal life, I was very compelled and extremely, dare I say, on their side, when Chalamet was killed defending Russell from yet another cannibal. This movie is full of them, but I swear in universe it kinda totally makes sense. And beside the cannibals, one rule is to not eat other cannibals, so this one's kind of being an extra big dick in this scenario, although it's not clear that he wants to eat her or even outright kill her, but he's got her at knife point and he's a major creep. Anyways, Chalamet dies defending her, and while dying, refusing to allow her to take him to a hospital, Chalamet tells her to eat him, bones and all. And I am man enough to admit that that got me just a little bit. His death, their idyllic little life being ruined just as it was going so well, not that thing he said, come on. I like this movie. It had some flaws, it's certainly tough to be a part of at times, but I really like Chalamet in this, and I love that he's still doing films like this right at the height of his popularity.
What's your ideal man?
My ideal man is kind of like Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. What? Look!
Look at these limbs.
After this, we got the latest rendition of one Willy Wonka, and this film presents a tone not unlike the one we just saw. Oh, I'm sorry, do you not think Wonka invocating items out of his hat isn't clearly symbolic of a pact he'd made with an ancient eldritch being? Give your head a shake. Wonka is and always has been a warlock, but Chalamet gives us a convincing chocolate-obsessed warlock fit with all the charm and moxie a role like this demands, but with a healthy dose of self-doubt and even trepidation at times, which really helps to round out the character. Now, admittedly, I have not actually seen any of the others, nor read the book. I know, I'm sorry, okay? There's a lot of stuff, I can't have consumed all of it. This is just one of those things that's kind of passed me by. I'll get to it. If I wasn't going on such a Chalamet kick to watch every one of his notable movies so I could get this video up before the Oscars, then I'd watch them right now. As it stands, however, I get to have the somewhat unique perspective of knowing what his character is like in a roundabout way, but not having anything to compare him to. And with all that being said, this is a pretty fun movie, and obviously Chalamet is practically the whole thing. So everything really hinges around him, and he delivered like he always does. Though I wouldn't say he knocks it out of the park or convinces us he was born for this role. He's just really solid, sometimes bordering on excellent. He plays this exceedingly wacky character with a ton of sincerity, and his motivations and savvy business tactics felt very pure and heartfelt. An unusual thing I noticed here was how he didn't frequently fall out of his usual demeanor, and at times I'd honestly think it was maybe even weak moments of acting. But the more often he did it, the more it came to feel like a person who was forcing a certain type of exterior, even when by himself. As I said, he's quite zany, and he doesn't really give off any sort of truly insane serial killer vibes, so I think this could just be the front he's developed to help cope with the loss of his mother. And over time he started to become that person more and more, and clearly it works for him business-wise, but the act is still dropped ever so slightly here and there. I don't know, this movie doesn't delve into his psyche whatsoever, but I'd like to think Chalamet himself developed a pretty good method behind the madness. Overall, I'd say this is right in the middle of his catalog. Better than the weak ones, but not in the same realm as his true top ones. Worth the watch for sure, with tons of sweet moments, and a must for any huge Chalamet fans. Boy, that was a long time spent talking about Wonka, huh? I'll keep this next film on the shorter side just to be safe. What do we have next? a strap-in. I, as well as many others, have become enamored with this duo of films more than perhaps any others. And alongside Denis Villeneuve, Timothée Chalamet deserves most of the credit for bringing the insanely complex and layered Paul Atreides to screen in all his glory. Yes, the other actors are doing a phenomenal job, this is known, but I truly don't think any of them compare to Timothée Chalamet, and if you ask me, this is the movie he should have received a Best Actor nomination for, a complete unknown aside. This role carries so much weight, so much complexity, and there's just so much going on at all times within every scene that he had to be cognizant of in order to relate to us in one way or another. Particularly once he's all in on being the Kwisatz Haderach, the messiah of the Fremen, his movements and words have impact like no other. His entrance here is perhaps my favorite of all time, and his speech immediately following it is disgustingly powerful. He is manipulating these Fremen, these incredibly tough folk who follow a rigid tradition and do not take kindly to outsiders. Zendaya stands up and says, "Do not listen to this little shit, he's trying to enslave us," and Timmy doesn't even deny it. He just starts screaming at people and he is greeted with thunderous applause from these sand-hardened warriors. Switching between English and the Fremen Shakopsa language, he conveys so much power, authority, supremacy with each word and each glance. He presents himself as the most dangerous of messiahs, and they worship him all the same. So much of this has to do with the writing and directing, but god damn it if I can't picture a single person doing this scene as well as him. And yes, of course I would be remiss if I failed to mention Hans Zimmer's stupendous score. It aids every single aspect of this film, notably Paul being a fucking badass. Much the same with the cinematography, led by Greg Fraser. The scope and framing of so many of these shots are just on another level. He continues the trend of having complex and unique relationships with the people around him, but here it's magnified tenfold. His relationship with Chani is so multi-layered, transforming and mutating as the movie goes on, much like his relationship with his mother. He converses with Fremen he's won over, Fremen he still has to impress, intimidate, or subdue. He has to use the voice on the person who taught him, say that 5 times fast. He stands up to the Fremen he wishes to align with as well as the Emperor and his acolytes, and he has to employ varying degrees of speech and mannerisms. Just like the Bene Gesserit trained, he truly is. He shows a different kind of respect and kinship for Duncan, Gurney, and Thufir, and he acts respectful and professional when alongside his father with absolutely no love lost. Remember when I said he honed this skill over the course of his many roles, culminating in his most impactful one? Obviously, I was referring to this one. He had to embody very, very different personalities as the films progressed, while simultaneously selling us on the how and why along the way, and never for a moment does he waver. I could go on and on. I could really go deep as shit for every single scene from these movies, but precious few deny his efficacy in this role, and that is for very good reason. The weight of the world was placed upon his shoulders with this role, and he has surpassed even the most skeptical of Dune fans, the most ardent supporters of Frank Herbert's truest vision. A massive reason these films are beloved by myself and so many others, and the best part is he's still got more in him. And that means two things, because he's doing Dune Messiah soon, and we also have one more movie to speak of. His actual Oscar-nominated role as Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown. Almost certainly the most he has ever melted into a role, Chalamet portrays Bob Dylan masterfully with a cigarette, black sunglasses, and his guitar never not on his person. I liked how happy they were to let him be an asshole. I thought it gave the film a good bit of sincerity, and those scenes where he was being off-putting or particularly grouchy were the times I completely forgot this was an actor on my screen the most. He just becomes Bob Dylan, or at least whatever version of Bob Dylan this movie wanted him to be. Since I can't necessarily attest to how accurately he portrayed the real Bob Dylan, seeing as how his career played out before my lifetime, and I'm admittedly not that familiar with him. But this movie did exactly what Timothée said he wanted it to. It got me interested in Bob Dylan and hungry for more. The rhythm of the movie was very unique and engaging. I found the songs wonderful and compelling, and how impressive is Chalamet. He fought for the ability to sing these songs himself in this film, and god, what a decision that was. How he sings like Dylan is as uncanny as it is brilliant as it is euphonious. He doesn't exactly bounce off his fellow cast members in the same ways as before, instead he is just unapologetically himself, rarely if ever shredding his sullen exterior. This is a very safe nomination for Best Actor, and honestly, I think he's gonna get it, and I know he deserves it. Though I think the film and his performance may have been a bit better in Dune, he does something equally as impressive here, just slipping into this persona and relishing in every line, every look, every strum. He is continually given these weighty roles where most of, if not the entire film, hinges around his performance, and he continues to knock it out of the park. I wouldn't say I exactly trust the Academy to make the right choice, but even then I think the narrative around him winning is just fantastic, becoming the new youngest Best Actor winner by beating out the former one in Adrian Brody. His campaign was miles better than his competition, and he's at the absolute height of his popularity, and he has earned it. For my money, he has two of the very best performances of the year, and I do believe he has the best one amongst the actors nominated. Win or lose, I think we all expect huge things from him going forward, and he has done absolutely nothing over the course of his career to give us even the faintest bit of doubt. No longer a superstar in the making, but a superstar now. A fascinating career belonging to a fascinating actor. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing if you like this sort of stuff and want to help support the channel, and like it or leave a comment about whichever of his movies you've resonated with the most. Until next time, take care.